is the new Leon a better value alternative to Golf 8? Hello guys, and welcome to this Volks Wizard video, which is once again a special video, but this time because it features hopefully the first of many cars loaned to me by the guys at SEAT UK, this brand new Leon you see here. Now this came about because a number of you asked for me to review this car on Twitter following my reviews of Golf 8 and Audi A3, and the guys at SEAT UK saw that and sent me this car to test. Now I've had it for quite a few days now and got to know it quite well, and what I've learned over that time I'm going to share with you in this video. The format's going to be just like the others. We're going to look at the exterior design, we're going to look at the interior, we're going to look at all that technology inside it, and then we're going to go for a test drive. And finally, we're going to do what's fast becoming my standard MPG test, which is 25 miles commuting to work. So without any further ado, let's have a closer look at the brand new SEAT Leon. Okay, let's start off then by talking about the spec of this Leon. You may have noticed it's not a hatchback, it's an estate. Thankfully, they've dropped the ST name now and they just call it estate, which makes life a lot easier. It's an FR model, which makes it a little bit sporty. We'll come on to that in a bit. The most interesting thing about it though is that it's a mild hybrid car. So forget what you know about hybrids. This car's nothing like that. It can't power itself on electricity. What it does though is that it stores electricity harvested during braking that would otherwise go to waste as heat, and it then runs the electronics when it decides to switch the engine off, say you're approaching a junction, which saves fuel. It's a very, very clever system, and it's exactly the same drivetrain that I had in the Golf 8 that I tested about 3 months ago, so it should make a really good car to compare with the Golf. Now, talking about the Golf, the Leon you see here is about £27,800. £1,000 of that is a premium for it being an estate. So if you wanted the hatch FRE TSI hybrid, which is by the way only available DSG, you'd be looking at just under £27,000. The equivalent Golf R-Line is a couple of £1,000 more than that, so you're looking at just under £29,000. Is it worth £2,000 more? Well, let's have a look around it and see what you get for your money. Okay, so being an FR model, you get 17-inch wheels, you get electrically adjustable mirrors, door mirrors with fold function, LED headlights with dynamic indicators and high beam assist, so basically automatic main beam, rain sensing wipers, nothing really new, daytime running lights with automatic headlight control and coming home function, wireless phone charger, which is a new thing, so there's a slot for your phone just there. You get a automatic dipping rear view mirror, again nothing new but nice to have, front center armrest, front seat manual lumbar adjustments, there's a lever on the side there, rear seat armrest, so in the middle there, leather flat bottom wheel with red stitching and FR logo, yeah, it's pretty nice, illuminated door sill just there, 3-zone climate, so I presume 2 at the front and 1 at the back. So yeah, there's a little temperature control panel there with a digital display, that's pretty cool. And you get SEAT drive profile selection, which is the SEAT equivalent of the mode function on a Golf. And finally, you get 15mm lower sports suspension, which yeah, it's not a bad stance for this car. It looks pretty good. The only problem is that this car does not run independent rear suspension. It's got a torsion beam, and the problem with that is that it's much harder for SEAT to create a good balance of ride and handling. At 150 horsepower, if you were to buy a Golf, you would get independent rear suspension. Now this may not sound like a big deal, but if you remember the Mark IV Golf, it wasn't the best handling car in the world. The Mark V changed all that, and that's because the Golf went from having a torsion beam to having multi-link rear suspension. Now after the Mark V, I think possibly after the Mark VI, so with the Mark VII, VW chopped and changed which cars they put that on, but basically if you've got a 150 or above, you've got multi-link. With the Leon, if you've got 150 or below, you've got torsion beam. So this is a transition car, so the equivalent Golf would have that. And I think, having lived with a Leon that didn't have multi-link, and it was a very, very hard ride, as is this one, as we'll find out later, I suggest you think very, very carefully if you want to buy a torsion beam Leon. I don't think manufacturers should be doing this, to be perfectly honest. If the model has got multi-link, it should have it throughout the range. This is just really taking the mick out of buyers. Anyway, let's have a closer look at the outside now. Okay, styling wise, it's yeah, front's probably not as successful. There's hints of Mazda, Citroen, bit of Jaguar as well, Focus. So is it better than the Golf? Well, probably, yeah. It's just not as nice as, say, the A3. Down the side profile, there's a little bit more sculpting. It's not as pronounced as it is in the A3. It doesn't look like it's been driven into, which somebody said the A3 looked like on Instagram, which is a fair point. It's got some sculpting, but it's not excessive. It's 5 centimeters longer in the wheelbase, which surprised me, and most of that apparently is for the back seat passengers. That's quite a nice touch. It does actually look like a bigger car now, looking at it. It's 10 centimeters longer overall, so that means an extra 5 centimeters in the boot, which we'll have a look at shortly. The back, I think, is quite easily the most successful part of the car design wise. So it's got this full width LED light bar, which I think I've only seen on Porsche Taycan and Macan. The Renault Megane one is broken up by I think the badge. So that looks really cool. Quite like the sculpting of the tailgate, and if only those exhausts were real, it would look amazing, but we'll probably get that with the Cupra. So yeah, it's not a bad looking car. There's no chrome on it, so we've got black window surrounds, we've got black roof rails, slightly different kind of colour I think on the mirror casings, and again that sort of grey in the grille and around the fog lights. So, a bit better than the Golf at the front, not as good as the A3. The side, somewhere in between the two. I think I quite like the sculpting on the A3. The back is, I think, easily a match for the A3, which looks good. Golf just looks pretty bland, so yeah, not a bad looker. Interestingly, we've got Michelin tyres on here as well, so that's quite a nice touch. It's been Bridgestone before, but yeah, nice tyres. Let's have a look inside then. Okay, so on this FR, you get these sort of sport seats, I guess, with this fake quilting. It's just melted sort of patterns into the fabric, and then the same fabric on the outside without the melting, and this fake leather here with orange stitching, which looks pretty cool. As I mentioned earlier, you get a lumbar adjustment as well, but all adjustment is manual. The door cards look, well, probably better than the A3, to be honest. So you've got a nice soft section here and here, and this is sort of fake leather. You've got this interesting sort of pixel pattern in the bottom of the door card, which I've seen quite a lot recently, and I quite like it. It can't cost an awful lot more to do. It's the same sort of plastic anyway, but it does make it look like somebody's made an effort, so that's pretty cool. But yeah, I think that's at least as good as the A3 there. Down here, plastic quality, carpet quality, I think it's pretty much A3, to be honest. Big problem with the mild hybrid, that was the case with the Golf, is that you can't put your feet flat here now. So if you're driving on cruise and you want to just have a little move around of your feet, you're kind of obstructed by this battery that contains the mild hybrid electricity, which could be a bit annoying. Okay, so it is quite a bit different in here to how it used to be. But actually saying that, my old Leon, which was the old gen car, probably a 2019 model year car, it had a digital instrument cluster, it had a screen here, but it also had climate control. Now, I quite like the Golf 8 cabin. I've got to say, I did miss it when I got in my 7.5, but I think having the Klima button as a shortcut to climate control was quite important for me to accept that cabin. I know a lot of people don't like it, that's fair enough, but I tried it, I quite liked it. I can't believe there's no climate shortcut in here. There is literally nothing. There's a couple of buttons here which are to do with start stop system and parking brake and central locking, but there's nothing else. But yeah, there's me like thinking, well, yeah, I quite like Golf, it's progressive and I don't mind that, and there's just enough in the way of buttons so you can live with the car, and here they've kind of got rid of that. So yeah, that's going to be hard for people to accept. But anyway, let's see what we can do. So you've got, being DSG, we've got the drive-by-wire or shift-by-wire shifter here, which is nice and stubby and it works really well. The only thing you can't do is manually shift, but you've got paddles anyway, so I wouldn't worry too much about that. Wireless phone charger there, USB-C only, but thankfully have supplied an adapter bit of a shame compared to the Golf is that we've just got these sort of miserable air vents here. If you look at the Golf 8 dashboard, the vents look really smart, and this just looks, well, pretty boring, to be honest. Okay, we've got this sort of area here that's quite nice. It's a bit A3. This plastic's quite nice. Even, no, that's not, that's rock hard actually, but who cares? That's all the way back. It's not bad, but I just think Golf is better, and, well, A3 is a bit better as well, to be perfectly honest. But the biggest issue is not having shortcuts. Let's see how we get on without it. So, start button there. Now, let's talk about the virtual cockpit first. You've seen this before. It's not that different to any of the others. It's a bit more configurable. So these are the displays. If I press view, it just cycles through them. They're all, I'm sure, configurable. But if you like a rev counter and a speedo, you can have that. You can also choose what you've got in the middle of them. So these buttons here, they allow you to adjust what's on display in here. Okay, and that's pretty cool. So let's press that again. So you can just scroll through all these options there on the right. And then same again, press the left-hand button, and it should give us that option there. So that's pretty trick. Is it full screen nav? I think it is. Yeah, there or thereabouts. So that's pretty cool. But the screen's quite small, so there's quite a lot of plastic around the outside with warning lights in it. Probably could make it a bit bigger. Maybe it's an option. I'm not too sure. Right, central screen. Okay then, deep breath. So, yeah, it's bewildering at first. I think the days of people jumping into hire cars at airports, which are often set, and just getting to know the car, you know, pretty quickly are gone now. You're going to have to spend quite a while on your way to your villa in Marbella just working out how to use the car, or you'll be wrapping it around a lamppost just around the airport perimeter. So yeah, let's see what we got. Now, like the Golf 8, we've got sliders for the temperature, which is nice. So, but as lots of people said, it's kind of hard to get the exact one you want. We've got a home button there, gives us all this stuff. A little trick I found that maybe is designed, maybe it's just a coincidence. If you turn the system off by holding that down, it gives you these shortcuts. So somebody from Top Gear Mag said, Golf 8 GTI, you have to spend ages getting to the ESC to turn it off, because that's what people do when they drive a Golf GTI. On this, you just turn that off, and there is that on and off like that. It's pretty quick. And then the other options are the modes, so driver profile select. You can switch to eco, and I think it does actually stay in eco on this car. It didn't on my old one, which reminds me, on this screen now, thank the Lord, they've got a permanent indicator of which mode you are in. So if you change it on here, feel a bit sporty, it actually tells you. So that's pretty cool, because that really bugged me on my old car. So yeah, just look, it will take a bit of getting used to, but when you get used to it, I'm pretty sure it will enrich your driving experience, but it will take time. The other thing we've got on this car is ambient lighting that runs across the top of the dash. So on a lot of cars, it's cool. It goes down here and it's really nice. On this car, maybe to tie it in with the height of it on the doors, they kind of got themselves into trouble there, putting it that high up. They put it across here, which is just a few inches from the base of the windscreen, which is right in the driver's eye line when you're driving at night, and it is quite distracting. Thankfully, I mean, I haven't messed around with this. This was how it came, but thankfully it's pretty easy to change that. So you go vehicle, background lighting, individual mode, and then broken it, brightness. Right, these are the different areas. So footwell, door cards. Oh, there is a bit down there as well, and that's dash top, and it is actually a bit higher than I'd want it. So that's probably where I would prefer it, somewhere down there. So it is all configurable. So that's quite nice. Now, another thing they've done, which I'll show you when we go driving, is they've integrated into the ambient lighting here the side assist flashing light. So if you've got cars in your blind spot, on Audis, the light is in the back of the door mirror there. On this car, it's actually internal. So it's, yeah, much more visible, actually. What's weird on this car is that just here, there's a painted section of the car. And if you catch the sun on that, like it's getting quite low now because we're heading towards winter, it illuminates that quite bright as well. And this reddy car sort of looks a bit orange. And if you do buy an orange Leon, it's going to really be confusing when that gets caught in the sun, because it looks like this sensor has come on. They probably could have just made that black or something just to take it out of the equation. But yeah, a bit of a weird thing you get to know about a car when you live with it for a few days like I have. The headlight switch is one of the new ones, so basically it defaults to auto mode. There's no sort of twist or anything. You'll probably just leave it on auto mode most of the time, which is perfectly fine. It's got the fog lights integrated in there and the demisters. So yeah, it's not bad. We've got the lights up here like the Golf 8, I think touch sensitive. When you work out how to use them, again, it's not immediately obvious, so smack it on and off. And I think they are dimmable, or is that just a Golf thing? Let's find out. Right. Dim, yeah. 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 Okay, we also have voice control, before I forget, and this is the saviour of the Golf 8, and it's probably the same thing here. I don't know if there's a high Seat or a hola Seat thing where you can address it, but there's a button on here. Let's press that. What can I say?
You can use voice control to operate the radio and media, navigation system, telephone and air conditioning. For example, say, where can I find restaurants nearby, or call John Smith work?
There we go. So there's a few things you can do, and it's just like Golf really. So I'll press that and say, let's get rid of that off the screen. Start again. Right, press that. I'm hot.
Sure, it will get cooler at the front right shortly.
So yeah, it's good. There are also shortcuts here to climate, so don't panic too much. If you turn this off again, like I said, using that button, you can still access the climate ones here. So yeah. So there are shortcuts to it, but I just quite liked the climate button as a little hark back to the olden days. But yeah, I'm sure in time you'll get used to this. Right, this is definitely my driving position, so let's go and have a look in the back. Turn that off. Okay, well, I don't normally watch car wear videos, but I did learn, contrary to expectations, this is just not a normal old Leon. They've actually made it longer in the wheelbase, which means this is really actually quite spacious, loads of leg room as well. So in the back, wow, it's pretty cool. Got some air vents here, which are a bit flimsy looking. I'm sure they'll break quite quickly. We've got some climate buttons there. I think that's digital display. Ignition's not on. And USB-C. Oh, go on then. Let's press the ignition on. Yeah, look at that. Of course, it could be locked so that this doesn't work, which was the case with the Golf. So let's just fix that this time. Oh, how hard is this going to be? Oh my God. Let's go into climate, right. Rear. Yeah, rear lock. Rear lock. Rear lock off. Yeah. Okay, yeah. Yeah, no, it was really is comfy in here. I'm amazed by it. Really is good. Right, let's go and have a look in the boot. Now, when I had my Leon, I did what a lot of people do, and I went to IKEA and bought something that was too big, and had to drive back here with the, let's just say, some sort of arrangement to keep the tailgate down. But this being 5 centimetres longer, I reckon might be all it takes. I quite like the fact you can pull that to get the seats back down. And you've got a flat boot. Now it's a double layer boot, so you can drop this down if you want. You have a bit of a ski slope there, transition. So that's pretty easy to do. I always find it a bit disappointing in Seats where you just manhandle this. Where you have nothing down here at all. Surely a bit of carpeting there would keep interior noise down, but no, nothing, no spare wheel, nothing. But at least you can fit one if you so desire. Right, I think it's now time to go and drive this new Seat Leon. Okay guys, here we are on a British B road in the new Leon, and I know not every owner will spank it down a country road, but it's an FR, so it's got some sporting pretensions, which I think are probably worth testing. Now the first thing you notice is that the ride quality is quite poor, and that's because we've got the cheaper torsion beam on the back. I know I'm banging on about that a lot. We've got lowered sports suspension, and we've got 17-inch wheels, and that's not a particularly brilliant combination for ride quality. The upshot of that though is that it does go around corners really rather well, but when you're not in the mood, it's constantly prodding at you to annoy you with the ride quality. I reckon 5% of my driving is chucking the car around a corner, the rest of it is just driving, and when I do that I don't want to be bounced around like I am in this car. I mean, this is a mid-sized family estate car, and yeah, it just seems a bit out of kilter with the market to make it so hard and go around corners so well, which it does. It's got an incredible chassis. It would work amazingly well on the smooth roads of Spain or Germany, but on a British B road it's a little bit turbulent, although its cornering is just so amazing. I reckon this chassis would work on track, it's that good. Now, aside from the ride and handling, we've got 150 horsepower and a 7-speed DSG, which makes the most of that relatively modest power output, but it's super smooth, super fast. 250 newton meters of torque, and that equates to a 0 to 60 time of 8.7 seconds, which is pretty good. It's about the same as an GTI, so yeah, it's not going to be the fastest car in a drag race, but you can still enjoy it on a road like this. Right, now let's go and see how it shapes up on a motorway and what kind of economy figures we can get out of this new Leon. Okay guys, here we are in the new Leon, and we're just about to do the economy test. I'm going to combine how it is to drive on the motorway with this test, because it's mainly a motorway drive anyway. So we've got about 25-26 miles ahead of us, which we did in the Golf 8 and the A3. I think they all topped over 50 miles per gallon, which was pretty impressive for a petrol car. So let's see how we get on with this eTSI mild hybrid 1.5 TSI Evo Leon Estates in FR trim. So I'm just going to reset the trip computer because I've got the ignition on. I haven't actually got the engine running because otherwise I'd be using fuel. So let's just reset that to 0. I press the right button. That's it. I should just mention, it's a keyless go car, not a keyless entry car, so you still have to press the remote to get in the car, but there's a starter button to start the engine, and it's quite a nice key, very posh, but it does seem to scratch. This car's done like 1,000 miles and that key already looks a bit rough. Okay, let's get going then. So press the glowing starter button, pop it into drive. We're in eco mode, so it can't get more efficient than that. Temperature now is 9 degrees, so it's got a bit of a tougher task on its hand to warm up than the other two cars which were filmed back in the summer. And that's when cars are really inefficient in the warm-up cycle, so it might have an impact on it, but let's see if it does. Okay, we're still only a mile in, but I thought it'd be a good time to just tell you about the mild hybrid technology in this car. So in addition to the normal 1.5 TSI Evo cylinder deactivation where it can run on 2 cylinders, this car can switch the engine off altogether. So if you're going down a hill, in fact it's actually doing it right now, it's just got to temperature, so it has to warm up a bit to do that. Now a normal eco car will just coast, switch the engine to idle rather than keep it in gear. If it's automatic it can do that quite easily. This car will turn the engine off altogether when it allows it to happen, which is obviously under low load conditions. Now it runs everything else, the air conditioning, the lighting and all that, using the electricity it's stored from braking. So right now there's a generator turning all that energy into electricity and storing it away for when it can use it. It's very, very clever. I think the effect on MPG is something like 5%. I can't remember the exact figures, but it's enough to have an effect on the CO2, and that's quite an important thing in the current world. The only downside with it is that you do feel the generation of electricity switching off when you brake. So up to about probably 5 miles an hour it's harvesting electricity, then below that it sort of switches off and the car's braking isn't consistent. It sort of feels like it starts to run away a bit, which is a bit disconcerting. Whether you can adapt to that in time, I don't know, because I've never really lived with the cars long enough, but right now I've had the car a few days and it's still a bit weird. Right, we're just getting on to the motorway now and we've already got 52 to the gallon on the trip computer over 8 miles, which yeah, is pretty good. I think it's pretty typical to the other 2 cars that I took on this route. Now we're going to set the adaptive cruise to 70 miles an hour again, there's a huge lorry alongside me. Why does this always happen? So I'm just going to get Ellie's let me out, so that makes a nice change, thank you. Okay, so 70 on the adaptive cruise, and we'll just let the car drive itself. Which brings me on to the driver assist systems you get in this car. So you get lane assist, which is particularly aggressive. It doesn't like it if you're not in the middle of the lane. It doesn't like it if you don't hold the steering wheel firmly. It'll bong quite frequently, you'll find, but you can turn it off. And it is a really useful safety feature. We've got adaptive cruise control, which if you've had a Golf for the last 6 years, you'll know is pretty good. It's gilded in this car with a couple of other features. So it's got traffic sign recognition and can adapt the speed accordingly. It's also got GPS data that it reads, and it can adapt the speed to corners, which is very clever, or at least it is in theory. When I drove it in Golf 8, I didn't really gel with that, and I love adaptive cruise. I definitely use that all the time. The other two features I wouldn't really use, not because I don't like technology, but because they don't seem to work very, very well. It feels like we're a guinea pig for autonomous driving, and they've still got a bit of work to do on those. We've also got side assist, which is like a blind spot warning system, which I do really, really like in cars. Of course, typically there's nobody overtaking me now. Here comes the Focus, so let's see what it does. It's got an orange light here. If I indicate, it flashes to warn you there's a car in your blind spot. So yeah, that's a pretty cool thing. Now normally they're on the back of the mirror, but as I mentioned earlier, in this car they're actually part of the ambient lighting, which is quite interesting. Yeah, but yeah, it's a nice thing to have, and it's all standard. There are actually no options on this car, which is a bit of a thing with Seat, because every option means a car has to be retested on the WLTP cycle. They just tend to give you the standard car. But yeah, this spec is, I think, pretty good for most people. The only thing it's missing is heated seats, and that's not an easy thing to retrofit. Right, back to MPG then. So 42 miles an hour average, 10 miles in, 51 to the gallon. The mild hybrid tech won't do anything on this trip because the engine's constantly running. It will help when we get to our slip road, as we'll find out in a bit. Okay, just thought I'd talk about the refinement of the Leon, because I don't normally do reviews on motorways, but we have the opportunity now. Now, on smooth bits of the motorway, it's pretty quiet, but it is a very surface-dependent car. If you move to this Corsa section, the repair now, back on the Corsa section, it's a lot noisier, and I think if they carpeted the boot, it would probably be a little bit quieter. But yeah, it's almost so loud now, it's just 70 miles an hour that you're having to raise your voice, which could get a bit tiring. One step in the right direction though is that if you're a user of adaptive cruise control, you'll know that pretty much every time you have to get into a car, you have to reduce the distance it sets between you and the car in front, because it's way too long for driving in the UK. The shortest distance is still very safe. Well, the good news is, on this car, once you program your preferred distance, it sticks to it forever until you change it, so it sets the new default. Okay guys, we're just approaching the slip road then. The engine is off, the revs are on 0, the start-stop symbol is on to say the engine's off, and on the right-hand side there's an Eco logo, very small one, just to tell you that as well. So if the start-stop logo wasn't on, we'd be running on cylinder deactivation if we had that logo, but it's off now, and we're still maintaining so much speed. There's so little rolling resistance. I'm going to have to get on the brakes quite hard now to slow the car down, and it's looking like 51.8, 51.9, so that's not a bad showing. So it's pretty much held its own on the motorway, which is, yeah, quite unusual, because motorway driving is not the most efficient. We did pretty much a steady 70 on adaptive cruise. So yeah, if you went a bit higher, obviously it wouldn't be that good. But again, this car is matching my diesel Leon, and that wasn't an old car, that was Euro 6 2019. Okay, well, here we are at work then. So let's have a look at the stats on the trip computer. So 33 minutes, 26 miles, 46 miles per hour average, and 52.3 to the gallon, which is bang on the money compared to the other cars. This car's a little bit heavier, being an estate car, so you need to take that into consideration. I reckon that might have an effect of sort of maybe 1 or 2 miles per gallon, but that's still a very, very impressive number. Only in January, like 9 months ago, did I buy myself a Leon 2-litre TDI FR, and I really would have to struggle to get that kind of MPG out of it. So yeah, these cars over the last sort of 3 months, 4 months have really changed my perceptions of petrol, and I'm pretty sure I wouldn't be buying a diesel again, and I do quite a few miles. I do 50 miles a day at least. So yeah, a real eye-opening result once again. Well, sadly my time with the new Leon is now coming to an end, so I guess I better answer the question this video has been building up to. Is the new Leon a far better value alternative than Golf 8? Well, it's certainly got a lot going for it. To my eyes, it looks better than the Golf. It's got great standard spec in this FR model. It's full of the same technology as Golf 8, and it goes round corners better than you might expect it to. It's also built to the same high standards as any VW Group car. But for an extra £2,000, the Golf gives you a much better balance of ride and handling. It also gives you a nicer interior. Now, they may look similar in photos, but trust me, the Golf one is far more premium than the Leon when you actually sit in it. And also it's got the magic Klima button, which is a nice little concession to the days when we used to have buttons for climate control. So my money would go on the Golf. Now, there is a condition to this in that lower powered models of the Leon with smaller wheels and not having sports suspension will ride perfectly well on torsion beam rear suspension. So don't rule those out, because they're still cheaper than the Golf. And also at the other end of the range, we're going to have high performance versions above 150 horsepower that are going to have multi-link, and they're going to give the Golf a real hard time, I think. Anyway guys, thanks as ever for watching this Volks Wizard video. If you've enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up. Please do comment. I do read them all and try and reply to as many as possible within the first few days. Please share it amongst your friends, and as ever, please do subscribe. It means a lot to this channel. 80% of views are still from non-subscribers, and that's way too high. So please subscribe, it's free, and click the notification button while you're at it, and I'll see you for the next one soon.